everyone, it is a Saturday morning and I'm going to do a quick little canning project this morning. We are going to be canning red onions in vinegar. That's what the recipe is called. I have these from Azure Standard. I just did 1 pack. Can't remember what the poundage on this is, but I based it off of the estimates at the back of this book. So the recipe is from this book, and at the back there's a really handy chart that says roughly how many pounds of something will yield X amount of cups. And one thing I am a little bit frustrated about is this recipe does call for cups rather than a weight. When I'm canning, I much prefer to use a weight, just because then you don't have to fiddle with, you know, measuring and, oh, how many have I done? Have I lost count? You can just chop your stuff up and throw it in a bowl on the scale, and it's so much easier. But this seems like it doesn't have to be a very precise recipe to be safe. It's basically just red wine vinegar and red onions, and then they are water bath canned. So we're just gonna give it a go, and hopefully this goes pretty quickly. So this recipe just wants these cut into 1/4 inch thick rings. I guess that's about a 1/4 inch. And then over here on a hot plate, I have my stock pot. I like using this, this hot plate for canning, and also just for this step where I have to use a really large stock pot, because we have an electric cooktop stove, and if we put anything on it that extends a certain distance past the little circular burners, you run the risk of cracking your stove. So even though this isn't a very heavy recipe, I don't want this on my stove. And so yeah, we're gonna use this hot plate here. And the first thing we're gonna do is simmer these onions, I think for like 5 minutes, and then you can them up and get the canner going. I do can in my pressure canner even when I'm water bath canning, just because it saves me the step of having to wash this thing out and try to prepare a rack in it or anything like that. So I am skeptical that we're gonna get 10 cups out of this. I don't think it will be the biggest deal for canning safety if we don't quite get the right amount out. We'll see. And then at the end, I will open up the index in the back and I'll double check how many pounds we're supposed to make 10 cups, and I'll let you all know if it was accurate. This should have been enough based on what I thought were my calculations. It's kind of hard to measure because, of course, they're so big, they don't really fit in the cup.
I don't know this one.
I need a really large, dry measuring cup. Woo, my eyes are watering. So I guess there's one.
No.
I think I'm gonna lose count. Good. All right, here's 2. So that was about 2.5 large onions that made the right amount. Let's see if I can get these stored up somehow. I'm gonna save this one, and maybe we will do fajitas or something. For the red wine vinegar, I am going to use this from Azure. We buy it by the gallon. I also love this in salad dressings. It's just quickly becoming one of my favorite things to cook with in the kitchen. And it calls for 4 cups. Now this recipe also calls for a clove of garlic, but I don't have a clove of garlic. It's all processed in the freezer. I think that's just a taste thing, not a safety thing, so I'm just gonna leave it out. All right, let's bring this up to a simmer. These are nice and softened, so I am gonna pull this off to the side, and I'm gonna pull in my pressure cooker and start heating up some water in that and get this canned up. All right, I'm gonna start ladling these onions in. It wants a 1/2 inch headspace, and it wants the onions to be covered with pickling liquid. I have never canned something that is, I don't know what I'm trying to say, difficult to fit in the jar like this. As you can see, it's not packed. Let me get something to pack this. I think I'm just gonna use a spoon. gently press it in there. I'm also not used to eyeballing these little jars. I've never canned in a half pint.
No, actually, I got like
Okay, so that's about it.
from the store.
There's a 1/2 inch headspace and a filled jar. Let's do one more together and see if we can get it to go a little bit quicker. Some liquid.
Is it school day? What day?
Great. All right, I will meet you back here once they're all in their jars. So here I'm going to debubble the jars with a chopstick. Now, I got 9 jars and I was supposed to get 7 jars. I might have been able to pack these a little bit tighter, but in general, I'm a little bit wary of packing things hard into the can because I know that can sometimes affect canning safety. So this was a little bit of an interesting experiment. I probably could have gotten more onions in each jar, but I did not want to push it. And then I'm going to wipe the rims down with a little bit of vinegar. This isn't a super greasy recipe, so I don't think this part is extremely important for this, but it does feel nice to just be tidy and make sure that the lids will have a nice chance at sealing well. And then here I have 4 jars canning lids. I just had them soaking in a bowl of warm water. And I'm gonna put them right on top. I was worried that I was gonna run out of the vinegar, the pickling brine to top these with, but I had just enough. Although I did end up with 2 extra jars here. I was supposed to get 7 and I ended up with 9. All right, let me grab my rings. Just gonna put these on. Now they're gonna go into the canner. Can do some of these by hand, but if it gets deeper, I might have to go grab my tongs. I'm gonna turn the heat all the way up on this, and I'm gonna top it some more liquid. That should be sufficient. Now, I'm not pressure canning today, but I am going to put this lid on just so it can boil faster. And I'll come check on this when I hear it making lots of noise. So we have hit 10 minutes at a boil. I'm gonna turn this off. I am gonna lift off this lid. And then we're just gonna let this sit for about 5 minutes. They have been sitting for a little while, and I'm gonna take them out. Line them up here. I like to cover my jars with a towel, and that way they cool down slowly and there's not as sudden of a temperature shift. All right, and that is the last of them. Thank you all so much for joining. I hope this gives you some inspiration to go can something, and this just helps us make the most of fresh ingredients and also make meals a little bit fancier with a lot less effort. All right, have a good day. Bye-bye.